point will be 10% above?
That's correct. 24.2.
You get to keep these hoses too? Or
No.
we're going to provide our own?
Yeah. A thin wall surgical latex will work just fine. You just got to be careful about it kinking up at the top when it's up there. Other than that, it'll work. If you get that, what I recommend do is just wrap around extra hose around here, so it kind of provides a little stability so that there's a nice big loop up at the top. So yes, to continue, there'll be a short MFC warm-up, and then it's going to go through a 5-minute pump warm-up. Now, the reason for the 5-minute pump warm-up is to make sure everything is in equilibrium. This is particularly important under cold weather conditions. On a day like today, that's really not necessary. So you can hit enter and bypass this. And we'll just look for stable reading on our TetraCal before we continue with the calibration. So let's see, we're at 21.14. So yes, continue, 21.15, and then bring this down a little bit. Enter. Next step point is 22, our target. Enter again. It'll do a brief MFC warm-up, but there won't be a pump warm-up. It'll just go right to the next one.
Pump just the first time.
Just the first time, that's right. And then type in 23.448, and then you can write this down. 26. It's 23.50 now, so you get backspace. Or actually, it's 48. Sorry. Go ahead and hit enter. And hit enter again, and we'll go to our last one. Alright, 25.66. Hit yes. Yep, go ahead. So now we get our new gain and offset. So from 6, we went to 6.237. From 0, we went to 0.29. And it gives us a correlation value of 1.000. Unless this calibration is really nonlinear or is really way off, that correlation value is almost always 1. So it's really not a good diagnostic tool to gauge whether the calibration is correct or not. Hit yes to save. Alright, and hit enter, and this will put us back into the calibration menu. Now we're going to backspace out and go into the audit menu, F3.
To verify.
Yep. Flow verification is F2, that's correct. Another warning, leak check should always precede a flow audit.
Nothing you can do, you just have to wait.
You just have to wait, I think it's, like 10 seconds. Continue with flow audit, yes. Connect flow meter, we're already connected. So you can see how it prompts you almost every step. Yep. So here's a 5-minute pump warm up, not necessary at the time. So you go ahead and enter. And before we enter any values, this is a little bit annoying on the verification. As soon as you go to enter any value, it's going to turn the pump off. So committing to memory what the value is here, or writing it down before you enter it, will save you a little bit of grief. Because it just...
I thought you just write it down.
We'll just wait for it to stabilize a little bit, and let's put 21.78 in, or 79. So I just punch it right in. 2179. You don't need to worry about decimal place. Yes. So we've got 2193 for example. Our reference is 2179. 0.04. Now our limits are 10%, which is 2.2 liters. So that's less than 1% off. Less than 1% off from the reference, and it's still, 1% off of the target of 22, so... Excellent. Yes, and it should ask us if we want to save.
So yes.
Yes. Answer. Alright. Next, we're going to go through our filter change process. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this kind of look how, you know, what you would look for when you come on site. So I want to move the display back over. So the last thing I have to show you guys is removing the cyclone. It's pretty easy. Any questions till now? Anything else you guys want to know? Alright. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the sample, or your auto cassette here, because it's in the way. And then I'm going to turn the power off. First thing I need to do is remove this power connector that goes to the module. And then I'll be taking this box out. There's these two screws here, which are hand tight, and they're captive, so they shouldn't just, everything pulls out, and these are trapped inside, so you can't lose them. This is a CPC style quick disconnect for the vacuum. So it just pops out, and then it's a half turn on this power cable up to the motor. It's kind of tight, this one, but, oh, there we go. So that's removed. Next, it's your quarter turn on this connector, this bayonet style. And then you just pull it out. There you go. There's your cyclone. It's double O-ringed on that connector. I think all the EPA is going to ask you to do is clean this out with a dry chem wipe. Then you've got your cup. It's just held in place by the O-ring. Clean this out, put it back in place. Probably inspect all the O-rings. The SOP does say you could use a little bit of vacuum grease. I haven't found that to be necessary, but you can use some if you'd like. You know, inspect the 4 O-rings on top, make sure things look clean, and then put it back into place.
That little part that you took off at the bottom, that's the collection cup for the
Everything that's
6
too big.
months worth of
Grit chamber.
Yeah, 6 months or a year, because they hadn't decided specifically what they were going to do. But because the flip side of, the more you take this out, the more likely you are to damage O-rings. And
yeah.
did I mention the O-rings are Teflon coated?
No.
That was very important. So if you look very carefully, you got these orange O-rings. If you look very carefully, there's a clear coating on them. It's coated with Teflon, and that's one, I believe, to prevent any off-gassing from the O-ring, and 2, it gives the O-rings a longer lifetime. The drawback is the O-rings are stiffer, and it requires URG to use a temperature bath and special tooling to get them in place without damaging them. That basically translates into you can't replace them in the field. So if you have a problem with a damaged O-ring and it's causing a failed bleed check and other issues, you basically end up sending something back to URG for repair. That's supposed to line up at the bottom of... That's good. So, and then putting it back in, it's recommended that you hook these up first, because it's a little hard to get your hand back in there, put it all together. So this is keyed, so sometimes it's a little tricky to figure out. That's this in place there as well. The best way to screw this back into place, if you look at this bottom left edge, make sure it lines up with that little edge on this aluminum plate. Because then that'll help you line up the holes correctly. So, right about... There we go. Because you're kind of blind doing it, but if you just use that as your guideline, it goes right in. Yeah, you can feel it catch. And your power connector back on. Voila. Yep. So that display we're going to work on over on this side, because pretty much 90% of the work is done on the module side.
Yeah, the Vanna White thing. There you go.
Now you need to access the menu system. This is what you should see, by the way. Date, time, next sample completed. It's already run a sample. It's waiting for a filter change and sample.
Is that in there?
Hit enter.